In the high Himalaya is the verdant valley of Kashmir. Here, amidst great natural beauty, the thoughts of man have constantly turned to the wonder of creation. Since early times, Kashmir has been a renowned center of Brahmanical and Buddhist philosophy. It is here that the Indian philosophy of aesthetics was expounded in detail by the philosopher Abhinavagupta in the 10th century. It is in Kashmir that Shaivism developed to great heights. The manifestation of Shiva and the beauty of the world around us was worshipped as Shakti. Unlike earlier austere forms of Buddhism, the Mahayana and Vajrayana schools flourished here. There is a very special quality of joyousness which pervades the art of this land, which is blessed by the bounty of nature. In the 1st century, the Kushana Emperor Kanishka held the 4th Great Buddhist Council in Kashmir. The site of Harwan, on a hill near Srinagar, is where the 4th Buddhist Council is believed to have been held. It was here that Sanskrit became the language of Buddhist scriptures instead of Pali, which was used before. This was also the first time that Mahayana Buddhism received major royal patronage. Earlier Buddhism was mainly an ethical message, which called upon each person to seek his own salvation through self-discipline. The new form of Buddhism brought the concept of bodhisattvas. These were beings who had postponed their own salvation to help others in the world on the path towards enlightenment. Followers could turn to them and pray for help. This form of Buddhism proved very popular and spread northwards and eastwards from Kashmir to Central Asia, China, and Tibet. In the 7th century, when Xuanzang visited India, Kashmir was a flourishing center of Buddhism, which rivaled the importance of Magadha, the area in which the Buddha had lived and preached. By this time, Buddhism had entered its 3rd major phase, the Vajrayana school, or the vehicle of the thunderbolt. The logic of this school was supposed to be as striking as a thunderbolt and as indestructible as a diamond. In earlier thought, liberation was possible only through many lifetimes of effort. The Vajrayana offered the possibility of nirvana within a single lifetime. The complex rituals, mantras or chants, and mudras or hand movements of Vajrayana Buddhism were codified in the form of tantras. Tantra literally means to carry on knowledge. In Kashmir in the 8th century, the king Lalitaditya's capital, Parihaspura, was one of the great centers of Buddhism in the world. Magnificent stupas were built here by the king and by Chankuna, his Tokharian minister. King Lalitaditya also made a large Vishnu temple and a Buddhist chaitya at Parihaspura. The formidable mountains that ring the valley did not prevent Kashmiri monks from traveling constantly to Tibet, Central Asia, and China. Between the 4th and 10th centuries, they conveyed the teachings of Buddhism far and wide. The trans-Himalayan lands of Spiti, Kinnaur and Ladakh are a magical place. The tallest mountains of the world stand guard. Thoughts of the eternal are never beyond the vision of man here. In this land, where everyday life is a challenge, Buddhism arrived very early. The Sani Stupa in Ladakh is believed to have been made by the Emperor Kanishka in the 1st century AD. There is a colossal sculpture of the Maitreya Buddha hewn out of the rock on the ancient route from Srinagar to Leh in Ladakh. It is made in the artistic style of Kashmir of the 8th and 9th centuries. There are other such colossal Buddhas and rock carvings of the 7th to the 9th centuries along the trade routes. These mark the movement of Buddhism and Kashmiri artistic influences to the high-altitude plateau region. The first great diffusion of Buddhism in the Trans-Himalaya was in the 8th century. Guru Padmasambhava established the religion in the entire mountainous region from Ladakh in the west to Arunachal Pradesh in the east. The great Guru had studied at the Nalanda University in eastern India. He was a famed master of Tantric Buddhism. He was called to Tibet when it was found that the people of that land were not easily taking to Buddhism. They remained fearful of the evil spirits and demons. The Guru brought with him his greater magic to tame the demons and made them defenders of the Buddhist faith. He swept across the high-altitude plateau with the CHAM, or sacred mask dance, with which he purified the land and made it ready for Buddhism. Till today, the CHAM is performed across the entire mountainous region to keep the land pure for Buddhism to prosper. The Guru continues to be deeply revered as a deity and is known as the second Buddha. King Yeshe-O came to the throne of Guge in the 10th century, at a time when Buddhism had considerably declined in the Trans-Himalaya. What troubled him most was that even the little practice of the religion which continued had degenerated and was colored by local magical rites. In 975 AD, Yeshe-O sent Rinchen Zangpo to Kashmir. This arduous journey to a center of Buddhism was to bring back scriptures with the original and pure knowledge of the faith. The mission was also to bring back artists to build, paint, and sculpt new temples in Guge. Rinchen Zangpo spent 17 years in Kashmir, completing his own education and guiding his disciples. In the years to come, he became known as the revered Lotsava, or Great Translator. His translations brought to Guge the true knowledge of Buddhism which the king had sought. In the 4th century, in the Buddhist centers of Kashmir, the Yogacharya school of thought had developed. It was believed that the most effective method for the attainment of the highest truth was through meditation or yoga, which means to become one with the eternal. The different aspects of the wisdom of the Buddha were personified as the 5 Buddhas: Akshobhaya, Ratnasambhava, Amitabha, Amogha Siddhi, and Vairochana. Vairochana, who symbolizes the mirror-like wisdom of the Buddha's enlightenment, is the supreme Buddha in the Yoga Tantras. Rinchen Zangpo had studied scriptures related to mandalas of Vairochana during the time he spent in Kashmir. In this period of the second diffusion of Buddhism in the Trans-Himalaya, it was mainly temples devoted to Vairochana which were set up. It is believed by the people of the Trans-Himalayan lands that Rinchen Zangpo made 108 monasteries and temples. He had brought 32 artists to Guge from the valley of Kashmir. They were to create the foundations of a lasting tradition of Buddhist art in the Trans-Himalaya. The painters and sculptors from Kashmir brought with them a highly sophisticated form of art which was deeply rooted in the classic Sanskrit texts of India. In the Indian philosophy of aesthetics, it is believed that the ecstasy we experience on seeing something truly beautiful, whether it be in nature or in art, is akin to the final bliss of salvation. The moment of the experience of beauty is one of the highest states, in which the veils of the illusory world are lifted and one sees the grace which underlies all of creation. Thus, the ecstatic response to beauty was seen as a glimpse of the truth itself. From the 5th century onwards, the hallmark of the finest Indian art was the deep and inward look on the faces of the figures. The art of these monasteries continues this sublime tradition. What makes the paintings and sculptures here unique is a sense of lilting grace which awakens joy within us. A journey to the early monasteries of the Himalaya should begin at Nyarma, which is among the 3 earliest monastic sites known of the period of the second diffusion, and is clearly attributed to Rinchen Zangpo. Nyarma is located a little off the main road heading south from Leh. The valley of Zanskar is an enchanted land. It is snowbound and cut off from the rest of the world for more than half the year. It is a holy place which preserves ancient Buddhist traditions. Karsha and Phugtal, 2 of the earliest monastic foundations in the Zanskar region, are ascribed to the Zanskar Lotsava, who followed in the footsteps of Rinchen Zangpo. Another isolated Himalayan region is Spiti in Himachal Pradesh. In a fertile valley in Spiti is the monastic temple complex of the Tabo village. This is the earliest functioning monastery of the second diffusion. It is believed to have been founded by Rinchen Zangpo in 996 AD. The main assembly hall of the Tabo monastery is an architectural Vajradhatu mandala. Stepping inside the doorway, one enters the mandala itself. All around are the deities depicted in the sculptures and paintings. A statue of Mahavairochana is seated at the apex of the arrangement. The sculptures of the temple are made of clay. 37 almost life-size deities are placed at a height upon the wall, without any support from the floor. They appear to hover in a heavenly space. Not very far from Tabo is the village of Lhalung. The Serkhang or Golden Temple at Lhalung is one of the most beautiful creations of the entire Himalaya. The walls have been transformed into a heavenly realm, peopled with gentle bodhisattvas and goddesses. These deities are arranged around a figure of the Shakyamuni Buddha. It is a world of serenity, yet one which elates the worshipper as he looks upon intertwining creepers and numberless mythical beings which populate the spaces between the deities. In Kinnaur, which adjoins the Spiti Valley, is a 10th century carved stone stele. It has an inscription of King Yeshe-O, which speaks of the time of the second diffusion, when it says the religion of God and man was taken to its peak. The Nako village at about 13,000 feet altitude in Kinnaur has an early temple complex. The main temple is called the Lotsava Lakhang, or the temple of the great translator Ringchen Zangpo. This temple has some of the finest surviving wall paintings of this period. Located in the fertile pockets of the river valleys of Ladakh are the closely associated temple complexes of Alchi, Mangyu and Sumda. All three are believed by the people of Ladakh to have been created by Ringchen Zangpo in one night. The entrance to the Sumstake or three-storied temple is delicately carved in the Kashmiri style. Figures are framed in architectural forms as seen in the temples of Kashmir since the 8th century. A special feature of the temples of Ladakh of this period are colossal figures of bodhisattvas. These are made of the local mud and stand 2 stories high. The dhoti of the 18-foot-high Avalokiteshvara statue in the Sumstake is covered with fine paintings. These are the richest visual record of the culture of Kashmir of that period. Buddhist and Brahmanical shrines and deities, musicians and dancers, and princes hunting on horseback cover the painted surface of the dhoti. We see the continuation of the tradition of fine shading and the rendering of form of the classic Indian idiom. We also see the vitality of the more stylized medieval idiom. The influence of Persia is seen in the intricate detailing and the miniaturization. A little downstream from Alchi, on the left bank of the river Indus, we meet the path which heads towards the Mangyu village. The village is a pleasant walk of a few hours and is at an altitude of about 11,400 feet. The art of the temple complex of Mangyu is very similar to that of Alchi. The monastery of Sumda, at about 13,000 feet altitude, is the third temple complex which is supposed to have been built in the same night as Alchi and Mangyu. What makes Sumda remarkable is the almost entirely preserved VAJRA dhatu mandala made out of clay. 37 figures create an ordered universe. flying figures bear offerings for the deities who represent our inner qualities. There is a joy which pervades this world of purity and graceful form. The experience of joy lies at the heart of the Buddhism which came to the Trans-Himalaya during the second diffusion. The concept of yoga stresses the oneness of everything in creation. This art, permeated with a sublime sense of grace, brings the worshipper closer to that ecstatic realization. Inside these temples, one enters an enchanted space. It is a world of graceful forms and color, which takes us into the deep and harmonious spaces of the inner self.